Within the next week or so, we're going to be announcing tariffs on specifically. This is a separate class than the 15% tariffs on sort of everything. These are excluded classes, I call them. I like to call them excluded, like steel, aluminum, etc.
Right, the 232.
We're going to be announcing on semiconductors and chips, which is a separate category, because we want them made in the United States.
That was President Trump yesterday, right here in Squawk Box. The remarks came just hours before AMD reported. Joining us now to put all this in context is Stacy Rasgon, Bernstein, senior semiconductor analyst. And let's talk about you have any idea? What can you tell me? What can you tell me, given what you just heard from President Trump, and how do you prepare for that?
Yeah, you bet. So with all of the tariff announcements and on and off and everything else that have been going on, semiconductors at this point have been mostly excluded. They've been part of a separate investigation, the 232 investigation that he was talking about. We're expecting the results of that in the next week, maybe a couple of weeks. I do think these are coming. It's very interesting how this might get structured too. We don't know yet exactly what they have in mind. However, I suspect it will be more than just tariffing semiconductors that are coming into the country. We don't actually import that many raw semiconductors. I think last year it was roughly $45 billion. And just as in context, I suspect $60 billion of semiconductors came in just inside smartphones into the U.S. Most semiconductors enter the U.S. inside other things. My own suspicion is we may see some element of what are known as like component level tariffs, where you're actually trying to tariff semiconductor and other components are actually in the devices that are coming into the U.S. To my mind, that is really the only way to really incentivize use of locally manufactured semiconductors. And so we still don't know what form this is going to take. It may be relatively complex, but I suspect we will see something along those lines. And I don't know if investors, how much attention investors have been paying. Most of the tariff announcements, just in general, investors have broadly been, dismissing, which I guess has kind of been the right trade. There's the whole taco trade that's been going on. With the implementation of the new reciprocal tariffs last week, though, in some of these 232 investigations, at some point, I think these are going to stick, and I think people will have to be prepared for it. That being said, at least there is demand for semiconductors. Semi prices, I think, over the last 5 years are up 50%. So the magnitude of disruption kind of depends on how this is implemented and what the level of tariffs is. And those are the things that we don't know yet.
Is it a good policy? I mean, will it have the intended consequence, Stacey, or you don't know?
I think more semiconductors are getting built here anyways. We've got companies like TSMC that are putting a lot more investment in the U.S., and I do think that there is interest in using those factories, tariffs or no tariffs. Are tariffs good policy or bad policy? I'll be honest. I think tariffs as part of a well thought out and well structured trade policy, maybe they have their place. Like the kind of blind way that tariffs in general have been being applied, I don't personally believe that's a great way to implement them. We will see how that evolves and what the final form of this will be. But I mean, good policy or bad policy, Trump likes tariffs. Trump thinks tariffs are good, and tariffs in some sense are going to stick.
AMD said they would have done better with their new business, the AI business. Can you just comment? The stock's down. The numbers weren't awful, but the advances made in the AI foray not as good as people thought. Was it the government's fault?
Yeah, well, so their AI revenues were down. That was something else. That was the China export controls. They were not allowed to sell AI chips into China in Q2, which we knew about. So that's okay. They're trying to get licenses renewed, and maybe that'll present some upside. The issue with the AMD, the print was okay. They had, was a slight beat and raise, at least on revenue. The issue was the revenue beat came from areas that nobody cares about. It was all in gaming. Everything else was in line. Client was in line. Data center was in line. The AI piece within data center, if you kind of pick at it, was probably in line. It's not enough for a stock that's up almost 80% over the last 3 months. And their spending is going up a lot. And I think if you believe in the AI story, you probably want to see them spend, but they are spending a lot of money, and it's limiting the EPS leverage. So the EPS in the quarter and the earnings in the guide, even though revenue beat, the earnings was guided down. on the spending. So you got to put all that together, coupled with the way the expectations have risen like over the last 3 months. It wasn't enough. So I'm not surprised it's down like somewhat today.
Wow, it has been on a complete roll. You're absolutely right. So that probably explains to some extent the move today. Stacy, thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet.